Hello there.
Hello.
Good morning. Very good
Morning.
morning to you all.
Good
Nicolette,
morning.
Heidi, Mihao, how are you today?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Well, it's just the beginning, so there's this tension still with us, but
Yes.
as we proceed into the conference, hopefully we'll relax a little bit more. But there's a reason why we are starting with this topic, because on the one hand, it sounds pretty general, like what's on the D&I menu, but we really want to try and understand what the trends are. We're going to keep the conversation as open as we can, so feel free to volunteer to answer our questions. But I will start with the global and societal trends influencing the D&I landscape. I suppose maybe the best platform to have an overview of what's happening globally would be TikTok to start with. So TikTok has seen a tremendous success over the past few years, growing and expanding creatively, structurally, conceptually. So there's just so much progress on this platform. When you look at the trends, what's happening? What do we see? What are we missing from this picture?
Yeah, hi everyone. Greetings from from the Berlin winter wonderland here. When I look
I was there
outside,
yesterday only.
oh, then you missed the snow. Then you
So,
missed
so
the snow.
trust me, we
Yeah.
are a lot more wintry here in Krakow, a lot more snow.
Okay, I believe you. I believe you. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you very much for the question. And unfortunately, I don't see the audience, so I cannot ask this question. But normally, every time I attend a conversation or like I participate in a conversation, I like to ask people if they use TikTok, and I like to know like how many of the viewers really use TikTok and how familiar are they with the platform. Because before answering this question, I would actually start with the fact what TikTok is about, what TikTok really is. And first of all, I think it's very important that TikTok is actually not a social media platform. TikTok is an entertainment platform. It's a short form video platform used by more than 1 billion people every month. And despite the fact that our users have millions of followers, TikTok was not built so that users can watch their friends or connect with families. On TikTok, content is what really matters. And on our platform, and that's in our opinion, very unique. Every new user has the opportunity to create a video that is watched by millions. And every person who posts a video receives equal chance to reach the audience. You only got to have a message that resonates to people, and if it does, then you have the chance to go viral.
That's the tricky
And that's
part, I
also what,
suppose.
yeah, yeah. But it's actually only about trying and experimenting, and I definitely guarantee you that you're going to find the audience. And we are also very proud to be home for a diverse community globally, and we are proud to provide a platform that provides people of all races, ethnicities, cultures, disabilities, genders, and identities a platform where they can be seen and heard. And talking about global trend and getting back to origin of your questions, we can actually name it as a global trend that from some time already we are living in this age of participation, and we understand it as a need of the users of our community to participate. They look for opportunities to become more visible, and this also enables underrepresented groups to become more visible on TikTok. And this refers to all diversity and inclusion related communities. It doesn't matter if the topic is about body positivity, women empowerment, LGBTQ plus topics, or people with disabilities. Some of these communities are not necessarily visible in the media, but they have a platform on TikTok. And that's the key here. And just to
Fair
mention two
enough.
examples, and then and I finish my first speech, um, because I think it gives you a great idea of like how we see that. Because two partnerships from the past. So, for example, the 2022 UEFA Women Europe's Football Championship partnership was a great example how we lived that. Or also just this year, we were the official media partners of the European Para Championship, where we achieved amazing results together. And like these underrepresented communities became more visible than ever before. Like just to mention two of the results, more than 1 million people watched the live streams of the finals, which is definitely remarkable. And also, the last thing I would like to add is that TikTok diversity and inclusion are not only visible like on a campaign and partnership level, but this is also part of our core values, and we are also like proud championing it both on our platform but also on our workplace.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Nicolette. Now, before I
Thank you.
ask a more general question, hoping that we'll arrive at some really clear, visible trends, how has the D&I landscape evolved? It's the question to all of you. I mean, is it more or less the same as it was 3 years ago when we had another conversation around D&I change makers? Can I kindly ask our production team to broaden the frame a little so that Basha is also there? Now, I need to explain something. In some panels and with some keynotes, I will be asking more questions. In others, Basha will be asking more questions.
It's my hand.
For the simple, it's my hand. For the simple reason that, you know, we had to juggle the calendars of everyone. We had those pre-conference meetings. So sometimes it was Basha talking to our guests, sometimes it was me. And that's the way we'll proceed. So back to the question. The overall D&I landscape, can we see a clear trend, or is it more or less a plateau, growing, sometimes evolving, but generally not much change? Who'd like to address this one? Heidi, Michał.
Yeah, I can jump in. Thank you so much. First of all, it's an honor to be here, and thank you for bringing us into your kitchen.
It's a
And not
pleasure
only
to
the
have you with
kitchen,
us.
I am looking forward to taste the menu today.
Wonderful.
And not only the kitchen, but the full room, actually. So very honored to be here. In terms of the company that I represent, maybe just 1 minute about that so you understand the context to which I am speaking. So ABB, global leader in automation, robotization, and electrification. 110,000 employees in 100 countries. Of course, no country is the same. So really, in the lens of the global space, I would say that there is a big variety of the menu. And the trends we are seeing, of course, we are mirroring society within our company. So if we go to your question around have we seen a change the past 3 years, I would say absolutely. And I would say a very interesting change, because we've seen when I started on the global agenda in 2018, we were really trying to get space for the agenda, to get the buy-in, to get the CEO and the executive committee on board as sponsors. We were working hard to mobilize our employees on the ground to join in our ERGs, employee resource groups. And now, some years later, this is driven by itself. Almost all of the executive committee members are active sponsors and visible allies, and we have thousands and thousands of people mobilized in the ERGs to drive the change. That said, and that comes to, as almost like a combination of your two questions around the trends and also the change the past 3 years. With Black Lives Matter, Me Too, and also I would say with the COVID-19, we saw a tremendous support to this topic and really a social justice coming at the forefront. At this point, we are experiencing a bit of pushback. So the trends are shifting, and we see it in many markets. More skepticism, more distance, more polarization, inside and outside. And of course, inside because of the outside. And that's also something we need to tackle. A bit of the pushback, a bit of the resistance, a bit of the polarization. And I am saying that to lead diversity and inclusion in a global company in 2023 is almost like managing a UN agenda. So yes, we have seen change, both good and bad. And now it's to manage it in the best and most mindful way so that
Heidi,
we can drive progress continuously.
What you're saying tells me that the future should be more about qualitative improvements than adding more quantitative diversity into the conversation, isn't it? Because you mentioned pushback. we are dedicating an entire section of this conference almost every year to the idea of pushback, so we'll be talking about it. But if you were to see where the biggest gaps currently are in this entire global conversation, what the reasons perhaps behind this pushback are, what else would you point to?
I would not say that it's more quality than quantity. I think we need both, because we need the masses to move. We need the majority and the privileged to act as sponsors and, and allies to drive the change. So I think we need, of course, to broaden the conversation, to think across dimensions, because it's not about women against men or young against or senior or all of these dimensions against each other. It's coming together and driving forward. So I think it's we need the masses, we need the quantity as well as the quality of the conversations. But of course, as we are seeing now, the distances are big. So then to be able to bridge the gap and to make sure that we come together instead of drifting apart, that is the diplomatic piece of managing conversations and also issues.
Thank you, Heidi. Michał, over to you. Is there anything you would describe as particularly intriguing when you look at the D&I trends globally now?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Michał. I'm representing one of the biggest European banks, Nordea. So just so you know the context, we're the Nordic bank. So in a way, for us, it's easy to drive D&I topics because this is something that we have in our DNA. But like you guys said, there's multiple different challenges which are out there. The polarity is strengthening. So it is so important to continue the dialogue, to listen in, to hear from all of the diverse groups on their concerns, their viewpoints, and what's out there. Maybe one element which I would like to surface, because I actually see that there is a significant progress and a significant transformation when it comes to the D&I topics. And probably we are after the hype. Like now we have the AI hype, and now we are more in the, let's call it, productivity plateau when it comes to D&I. But one of the emerging trends that I see, which I'm actually very glad to see more of, is the neurodiversity. I see that we are now picking up way more of the diverse groups that you cannot catch with your eye, things that you are not seeing, but those which are within. So this is something that at Nordea we start to explore and do more around the neurodiversity. And now we see as well the significant connection of what we do in the D&I with the well-being arena. We feel that when our employees are getting a better life when it comes to health, and obviously then when it's combined together with the trust, the open dialogue in the organization, then you can talk about D&I effort that goes on the steroids. So it is something that is emerging as well, and that I think we should all invest in even more. So to think way more holistically about that domain.
Maybe I should come back with... thank you,
Just
Michał.
on this one, because I think that's a very interesting point.
Yes.
Yeah, if I might just chime in on this one, because I think what you mentioned there around neurodiversity, abilities, and so on, really, really emerging trend, I would say also. We dedicate each quarter to various dimensions, and the last quarter of the year is for abilities. This year, we touched upon areas where I've been 22 years with ABB. So now, 22 years later, to address menopause, grief, and elements that normally, many years back, would say, this does not belong in the workplace. This is changing. You are supposed to be able to bring your full self to work. And when you come to work, you are not putting behind you everything that happened in the morning with the family or elderly parents that are maybe struggling and so on and so forth. You have all the care responsibilities. You have everything that you are living in your full life, of course, you bring to work. And when you go back from work, you bring it also home. So that kind of thinking that we are whole people and that we also need to accommodate for that in the workplace, that I think is an extremely important piece of the well-being aspect of diversity and inclusion.
which potentially opens up all sorts of new risks, because this conversation about diversity and inclusion is also a conversation about relatability, because when we talk about it and when we want to convince someone around a particular issue in D&I, one exercise, one way to go about it would be imagine you're talking to the most cynical audience imaginable and see if you can adjust arguments accordingly. So clearly, Basha, I'm sure you will agree, or maybe you will not. But we're not seeing a very clear shift in the D&I conversation, so it's going in a certain direction, but no major revolutions there, right?
Actually, I wouldn't say so, and I like the examples that were brought up. I'm clearly seeing more openness towards new D&I dimensions. Just mentioned neurodiversity, maybe more space for well-being and bringing your true self to work. Maybe we're more open to talk about the aspects of loneliness and grief menopause. So clearly something is changing. I wouldn't just call it a trend, but our D&I mindset.
We in fact have a broad study to look into later in the day to see on a wider sample how these trends are visible. So we'll know by then, I suppose.
Hopefully, yes. Thank you for involving me in this conversation, because I'm conscious of how little time we have for such a macro topic. So thank you.
My pleasure. Nicolette, back to the resistance part of it. Would you agree that resistance is an issue? It's growing or it's smaller? Can we talk about any trends that you can see from the perspective of TikTok?
Yeah, it's actually a very good question, and I would actually like touch up on it from this perspective of like how to reach those audiences, how to generate buzz, how to create awareness for DIY topic. And also here we at TikTok, we know our role in the society, and I also described an overall approach in the beginning that we really aim for and hope to provide a platform for everyone. And also I prepared some data to answer your questions on a data basis, and especially I brought some Polish data, so like Poland related numbers in terms of like how our community is perceiving this topic. And I think it's amazing to see, and we are also very happy about these numbers, that actually 60% of TikTok users in Poland say that the platform allows them to better understand what other people do and how they live. And more than 76% of our users in Poland say that TikTok helps them to express themselves. And that's actually more than, 10% more than the European average, which is also remarkable. 60% of our users say that the platform gives them the feeling of belonging to a community of people who share like similar values and interests and opinions. And the last data, or the last number I also would like to share, is that 58% of our users put the app in their top 3 media choices when they want to feel safe while meeting other people who share similar opinions like them.
Fair enough.
You're looking at me, but I'm also looking at how many questions are going or coming through our chat.
Questions from our audience, so maybe we'll use those for now and come back to our questions later. There's a question to TikTok now that we're talking to Nicolette. How would you consider rising problem of filter bubbles? Diversity dies in such closed communities. That's an interesting one. Nicolette, would you like to relate to that one?
Yeah, very, very good question, because actually how we see it is actually rather the opposite. Because the more visible those communities, those DIY topic becomes, the more interesting they also become. And also brands became aware of them. They also like involve them in the conversation. So it's actually like even encouraging the bubble outside of TikTok to engage with those topics. And TikTok is really just a platform which drives that conversation and makes awareness. So that's...
Thank you. To relate to what was just said, Heidi, I think you mentioned that the complexity of our emotional life essentially is part of our full day. We carry it with us, sometimes whether we like it or not. Only yesterday, on my way to Krakow, I was watching a couple of short films related to diversity and inclusion on TikTok, no less. And I think it was Simon Sinek who referred to the challenges of the younger generation, overstimulated in this hyper-dynamic world, and at the same time, more away from building traditional relationships in the outside world, non-digital world. So as he was painting this image, he also referred to the concept of being emotionally unprofessional. I mean, in the sense that there is this borderline where we have the professional environment and where we have our inner world that can be infinitely more diverse, more complex. Mm-hmm. So as we look at this landscape of the younger generation in particular, exposed in pretty much their entire lives to the digital tools, digital landscape, like literally living in their screens.
Digital life.
Is that not something that will definitely affect the trends as we look to the future and how to respond to it?
Absolutely. I think you are spot on, actually. And I think these are some very key trends we are seeing in the multi-generational workforce, 5 generations in the workspace. So I think it's not only about the young generation, it's also about how that intergenerational collaboration will work. How can we bring the best out of everyone, bridging the generational gap, making sure that we see and hear and understand how to lead, how to be led, how to stimulate, and how to adapt across generations. And I think that is a piece of art that we need to address much more closely. And we actually have a dimension purely dedicated to generations at ABB, with an easy sponsor and so on. And a lot of focus is going to the young generations. But when we are looking at the engagement survey and all the questions there, we are seeing that we are actually not doing our job with the senior professionals. That's where we have less engagement. That's where we need to adapt much more of the communication and so on. So I think we tend to focus a lot on the new generations and the uniqueness, but we must not forget 5 generations in the workspace, how to adapt, how to collaborate, and how to set a workforce that is set up for success.
Thank you very much, Heidi. That brings me to our next question from the audience. But maybe, Michał, I think I will challenge you with a difficult one here. Because traditionally, when you look at this trajectory, on the one side of it, the one extreme, we have the likes of Milton Friedman saying the business of business is business, and we shouldn't be going beyond that. And at the other extreme is where organizations are trying to respond to all kinds of diverse needs that people have, eventually leading to a situation where you will have pushback, because the cynical part of your audience will think, what does it have to do with anything here? And the concept of emotionally unprofessional is back in a way. So when you look at that, again, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we talked about neurodiversity, we talked about those different aspects of the D&I conversation. Do you see any particular shifts on the horizon in that context, Michał?
Yeah. No, I feel that those discussions probably are continuously going in a similar way. So I think continuously you need to bring and remind on the business case, on validity of the approach, right? Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, we need to not only kind of provide the lip service that this is a promise, but then we need to verify the results, right? And then when we preach on the diversity and inclusion elements, then we should see as well, what fruits that brings from innovation, all other perspectives, right? Now at Nordea, maybe we are unique because of the very strong Nordic values and things which I mentioned. We continuously see that reinforcement of very high perception of that we are highly inclusive and that employees are willing to join us because we all offer almost the safe haven for all of the sorts of diversities. So in a way, for us, it's at Nordea, it is easier, but I think you're totally right that this is a common challenge continuously to remind on the business case, to bring the data points, to remind why we're doing this and what's the output of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Super important because on the one hand, the conversation is about making this whole exercise relatable, tangible, But of course, recognizing the fundamental fact that we are all different, we have different needs, and do as you would be done by is as ancient as that. We have two more questions. Basha, I think we can
I'm
share
thinking
that.
which one should we pick?
Maybe we can use two. Both.
Maybe. I'm trying to combine these two, and maybe if the three of you are willing to stay online, you can also tackle these questions via chat window. I think I would like to make a circle to this aspect of kitchen, yes, table, yes, as a symbol of togetherness, but the aspect of inclusion, participation, and really bridging the gaps or differences between generations. So I think if we could probably make this a final question to the three of you and ask you, is it even possible to have one common menu recognizing all the differences? We're talking a macro level, one organization, one strategy. Is it even possible to offer your employees one common menu, D&I
or
menu?
should we even look at it this way in the first place?
What's your perspective on that?
Anyone? Minute and a half left.
Yeah, I can go. I can start. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. I just love the concept of menu. And when we were having a pre-discussion around it, I was thinking about, hot and cold and boiling and spices and all of this. But I also thought of one thing, and it is really to say, if we're eating the same every day, we will not like it anymore, right? And also the fact that if we're looking at ABB, for example, 100 countries, 100 different cultures, and within each of these 100 countries, many, many subcultures in society. Of course, then we have an overarching ABB culture. But of course, in my perspective, there is not possible to have one menu across all the entire
There you have it.
rooms of our house. So for me and for us, we are thinking about a core menu that is healthy with, a nice distribution on the plate. But then leaving it up, maybe even 50% of the plate is free for you to pick and choose in the buffet, as suits you and your health.
Yep.
So this is how we see it. Global, with the foundational pieces in place, but then adapted with the local menu to really be fit for purpose in each of the countries. Saudi different from Norway, US different from China, India from South Africa, etc. They are free to choose their menu, and that's how I think we will succeed.
Nice. Yeah, it really resonates
Yeah.
with me. It's almost like having a core elements
Yes.
and making the rest almost like a seasonal menu, depending on the needs and audiences.
And also not try to follow the fashion, the trend globally too closely. Remember, as an organization, you're unique, and think about it this way. Look for solutions that fit and suit your particular needs. Understand your employees first, just like in any audience situations. It's a family thing. It's a togetherness thing. If you want people to be motivated, work together, you really need to understand them first. Nicolette, Michał, one final recommendation as we look at the trends to the future.
Yeah, maybe I will go with super basic, but I think that, and this is so universal, and I think will stay common for probably decades ahead, is the authenticity. We need to go beyond this. I call it performative D&I, where people just use the moment. Okay, we have the parade. I put the T-shirt on, then it's Black Lives Matters. I put this the pin on. And day after, they do not provide any evidence that they truly support. So this level of authenticity and follow up to what we preach, I think, will be continuously needed, regardless of how trends will adjust and change. That this is an ongoing need that should be fulfilled as a base.
Thank you, Michał. Nicolette, we started with you. We are closing with you. One final recommendation, please.
Thank you very much. And I'm also very happy that both Heidi and Michal highlighted the importance of DIY at the workplace. And also Michal just mentioned that DIY shouldn't be a topic just on a campaign level, but also companies should really live it. They should really do one thing, but then do it truly. And I think I would love to then answer this question and close this part of conversation with a very personal question. And I think it gives a great example of how TikTok really lives DIY and how this is all really part of our core values. my personal example, it was already well known at the company and also from management that I'm pregnant, I'm going to be a mom. But despite this fact, I received a promotion and I've been promoted some months ago to head of operations. And I think this is, I would say, unique and remarkable example, which every company should also like follow and really show that like those values are not only on the paper, but those are really lived in the workplace.
We couldn't have hoped for a more optimistic
I believe
closing.
so.
Congratulations, first of all. And I suppose, looking to the future of D&I, we will be in the future of D&I the moment when you say something like this, Nicolette, you no longer have to use the word despite. I suppose that's when we're truly inclusive into the future. We couldn't just say how grateful we are for you joining us today for the opening of D&I Changemakers 23. Thank you so much for joining us. Heidi, Nicolette, Michał, pleasure. Thank you. All the best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.